Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today to talk about the transition from college to your career. My name is Desiree Williams, and I'm the Digital Education Coordinator here at AKSI. I'll be your webcast producer. Before we get started with our program, let's review the web-based features available to you. This webinar will be advanced remotely, but at the bottom of your screen, there are multiple application widgets you can use throughout the program. If you're watching this webinar on a mobile device, you may need to scroll down or over on your screen to see these widgets. Each window on your screen is customizable as well, so feel free to resize and move them to fit your needs. A copy of the slideshow and other additional materials are available in the green Resource List widget. If you have any technical difficulty, please click on the Help widget with the question mark icon. And lastly, if you have a question throughout the program, please type that into the Q&A widget. Any questions not addressed during the presentation or in the Q&A portion at the end will be responded to via email. So you've spent the past few years in college and the past 12 before that still in school. Now is an exciting time because you're about to graduate and move on, but transitioning to the workforce brings quite a few changes and a lot that you might not anticipate. During today's conversation, we'll focus on the areas you can control during this transition and identify ways to prepare for the change. And now I'd like to introduce our presenter, Tim Beagle. Tim has previously been a manager for AT&T in the collections department, as well as a manager in an AT&T store before transitioning into a realtor in 2014. In Alpha Kappa Psi, he serves on the management team as regional director for the Southern Bluegrass region. And now I'll hand it off to Tim to get us started.
Thanks, Desiree. We all know that college has become a familiar experience now. You spent the past 3 to 5 years going to class, making new friends, and exploring campus. By the time you're ready to graduate, you're very comfortable at school, and you know how to navigate it. There's really no surprises for you. What many soon-to-be graduates don't think about is the change right around the corner, graduation. In college, you grew used to the jam-packed schedules of classes, organization meetings, activities, maybe even a part-time job or an internship. In college, it's not uncommon to constantly be surrounded by your peers and social groups as you hang out between classes and on campus and stay up late cramming for your exams. In college, everyone is going through similar experiences, trying to navigate coursework, figuring out who you are and your path to post-graduation. After college, a lot of that fades. You might move away from your college town, or your friends might. Even if you had a job in college, starting a career is a different experience. College is about learning and trying new things. But once you graduate and take on a full-time role, you're responsible for a great deal more. People are counting on you to finish projects that aren't just practice assignments, but have real implications. This can heavily increase the pressure to succeed. Many graduates often claim to experience sadness and difficulty adjusting to new lifestyles when they leave behind what they were used to. This is very normal. It's called post-graduation depression. You can't avoid life after college, and everyone's situation will be different, but there are various areas you can focus on and prepare for to make the transition that much smoother. One of the biggest challenges after graduation is adjusting to your new normal. As everyone accepts jobs with different requirements, expectations, and schedules, you all will have to acclimate. First, there's new operating hours. You no longer have the option to skip work like you could skip class every once in a while. You'll need to adjust your sleeping schedule to accommodate the new work hours and stay productive throughout the day. Remember, you're getting paid to show up to your job. And unfortunately, if you don't show up, the pay's going to stop. Second, you'll have to get used to not seeing your friends as often as before. And you might need to find new ways to connect. Work schedules vary, so it might be difficult to find time to do things together. This is where you might hear people talk about how they grew apart from their friends after graduation. It happens, and you've got to work that much harder to even stay close after graduation. College acts primarily as a learning experience to allow you to improve your skills so you're prepared for the workforce. In order to get that job, you had to earn that degree. To earn that degree, you had to pass your class. While learning was important, you probably didn't view every assignment as an opportunity to improve or connect to the bigger picture. It was just something that you wanted to get that A, you wanted to pass that class. Now that you're focused on a career, your mindset needs to shift from short-term tasks to long-term planning. What are you doing to further your development? How will your actions impact your company or your next position? First, focus on growth and steer away from needing to pass. Work projects aren't pass or fail. It's just a stepping stone in the company's future success. Think how you can grow your skills to be more effective in your job. Next, you got to be a team player. It's not all about you. Focus on not just your success, but the success of the company. The company can't operate unless everyone is doing their job. I remember there was a time when I was at AT&T, and they had a position, it was a leadership intern program. And in that program, when we did our merger, they ended up getting rid of that position. And they were giving everyone that had that position, which was about 50 of us, 6 months to either move up to the next level or we were going to become senior representatives and go back on the phones. Now, keep in mind, some of the people that were in that position, they were in it for years, many, many years, possibly even some were 5 or 10 years. So they did not want to go on the phones. So they had a negative attitude about it, and they weren't looking out for the company. They were looking out for themselves. Now, there was another set in that group that were positive and seeing what they could do to grow. The ones that were positive ended up moving up to management. The ones that were negative and could care less, they went back on the phones. So that's something you should always think about. You'll also have to follow company rules and policies. Now, how many of you have social media accounts that you feel represent the company you're going to work for very well? Many of you probably don't. There's probably some inappropriate things on there, and it might not fall under your company's corporate policies. So you represent them as much as you represent you, so you might want to do a little cleanse of social media. Lastly, understand that the job will be both a joy and a struggle. Your first job likely will not be the job or company you are with forever. So utilize each role as a stepping stone, an opportunity for your future growth. Shifting your mindset is a great way to begin the transition. The next area I want to focus on is something many of you have probably heard before, finding a work-life balance. What that means varies for everyone, but it's important to understand where you want and need to set boundaries for yourself in terms of your work life and personal life. Where do you need to draw the line of hanging out with coworkers after hours? Do you want to have your work email on your phone for easy access? How do you want to establish me time? Developing a work-life balance requires 2 skill sets, time management and stress management. Let's look at both of these a bit more in depth. When thinking about time management, ask yourself 3 questions. How are you spending your time? Do you own your time, or does it own you? How long does it take you to complete a task? When you find yourself being inefficient and spending too much time on work, it can bleed into your personal time. Creating a stronger work-life balance starts with recognizing what you need to accomplish and how you can proficiently fit everything into your day. If there isn't enough time, you'll need to pull back or adjust your priorities throughout the year. It's not uncommon for jobs to have a busy season where for a few months, your personal life will fade into the background in favor of your career. But afterwards, you can take a slight step back at work to create the balance. Take, for example, a tax accountant. They're pretty busy up until April 15th, and then their season slows down a little bit. But if you talk to them at the beginning of the year, they're nowhere to be found. Always remember, there are 168 hours in your week, and it's up to you to control how each of those hours are allocated. Think of it like a budget, but instead of money, you're budgeting the most valuable commodity you have, and that's your time. Now let's look at stress management. Regardless of how much you focus on creating a work-life balance, there will be certain times when one part of your life will take greater priority. It could be work, and at other times, it could be your family or personal health. And trust me, when those things come up, they don't announce it, they just happen. It is important to know how you react when your stress level is greater than normal, so you can better manage it. Ask yourself, what do you do when you get overwhelmed? Do you know how to manage your stress? Not everyone responds to stress the same, so it's vital to figure out those answers to those questions for you. One step that many business coaches recommend when managing your time and stress levels is to build white space to your schedule. This allows you to be more flexible and adaptable to the unknown, which I guarantee will rise throughout the year. Another thing that lots of business coaches also recommend when you're planning out your yearly calendar, make sure you plan out your vacations first. Where do you want to go? What time do you want to take off? Because if you don't put that in there first, it's going to be the first thing that will get left off the schedule because you just don't have time. And you need to have a little me time. During this transition, it's important to ensure you are forming positive habits that will stick with you throughout your career and personal life. Keep in mind, it takes approximately 21 days to form a new habit. Let's walk through 3 helpful habits, starting with exercise. During college, even if you didn't normally exercise, you walked around campus a lot. Once you start a job, especially in an office setting, you'll be at a desk most often. If you start experiencing the postgraduate depression, exercise releases endorphins, so not only will it keep you in shape, but it can also combat feelings of sadness. It is very easy to become unhealthy after college. It could be as simple as grabbing something convenient or going out to bond with coworkers. But what is that doing for your health? Eating unhealthy can cause you to feel sluggish and unproductive, which affects your job performance. Focus on maintaining your health by eating a balanced diet. Think about it this way. Professional athletes spend so much time and energy remaining healthy and in shape, and now the same goes for you. You are the athlete, and your job is the team. So don't let them down. And our third habit is budgeting. Now that you have a full-time job, you're making more money, it's easy to think that since you have more money coming in, you can afford to spend more as well. That isn't always the case, particularly if your expenses have increased. Creating a budget will help you understand your income and expenses as well as identify the best ways to manage your finances so you can tackle any debt and plan for the future. A good example here that I happen to see all the time is people get out of college and one thing they want to do, because it's one of the greatest ways to build wealth in America, is let me go out there and buy a house. Well, some things that hold people back from buying houses is student loan debt. So when you graduate and you get that new career, I recommend definitely coming up with a budget and come up with a plan of how you're going to save money for a house, as well as knock out that student loan debt so it's not holding you back into your 40s and 50s that I hear so often. One of the best ways to help yourself during the transition is to identify your support group. Your support group can and should be made up of various people who can guide you through the journey. Sometimes they experience the same thing, and you can help each other. And they might have already been through it, so they can give you the best advice so you're not making the same mistakes they did. Let's go through a few types of people who can be your support. First, we have friends. Friends are a great place to start for your support system. Friends from college are struggling with similar changes, and friends made along the way are still trying to find out what their new norm is. If you moved away from your college or hometown after graduation, it could be difficult to connect with your friends back home. Making new friends through colleagues at work, local professional organizations, or community organizations like church, gym, or neighborhood groups are all great ways to connect with new people and develop a support system in your new location. Next, you can include mentors. Having a mentor is important for professional support. A mentor understands the struggles you are experiencing, and they can help you navigate those. You can bounce ideas back and forth, and they can challenge you to become better. If you don't have a mentor, look to the professional organizations and groups I just mentioned. Aside from finding new friends, these type of groups are fantastic places to look for mentors. Lastly, you have your family. Family members are always great to lean on. They might not understand the specific struggles, but they can highlight the progress you've made and keep you grounded. Now, we've talked about quite a bit today, so let's do a quick recap. It takes time to adjust to your new normal, and the length of time depends on the individual. There is no right timeline. It's okay to move at your own pace and for the new normal to change again as you continue through your career. Focus on your mindset. Now that you're out of school, put what you've learned into practice. Focus on continuous development and improvement rather than attaining the status quo of projects or assignments. But don't let your personal health suffer from working too much. On the flip side, don't put too much emphasis on seeking the work-life balance and forget to focus on your professional career. Start forming positive habits. These will not only help you feel better during the transition, but also set expectations for yourself moving forward. Find your support group. This will help you navigate the change and feel supported. Remember, nobody has it all together. It can be easy to think you are the only one struggling with this transition, or that you aren't moving as quickly as your career as others, especially with the prevalence of social media. The most important thing is that you are progressing toward your goals, and when you do encounter bumps in the road, you grow from it and continue to move forward.
Thanks, Tim, for leading us through that presentation. And before we chat through some more questions, let's review the key skills that we explored today. During the transition from college to career, you will improve your decision-making skills by selecting a career field, forming a new schedule, and identifying your new normal. And by developing this new normal, you'll learn to organize new routines and build relationships with new people. By assessing your stress levels and reactions to various situations, you will also enhance your emotional intelligence. Now at this point, we will move on to questions. If you have questions that aren't addressed now, please type those into the Q&A widget and you'll receive an answer via email. So Tim, to get us started with the first question, what's the best way to find groups or connect with other young professionals? And can you provide some examples?
Good ways to do it is depending on what your company is. They might have a young professional network with them. Other things you can do is you can go onto a meetup app and you can look into different groups. You can find anything from volleyball to networking groups. Depending on what city you go to, you can also find different groups, organizations around the city. For example, why don't you check out your local Chamber of Commerce? It's a good way to get involved with the community as well as the local businesses, and it could even help you advance your career. Other opportunities I'm sure that you've heard of is Toastmasters. Most cities have multiple Toastmasters, especially if it's a bigger city, so those are good opportunities for you. And don't forget, you can also see if there's a local AKSI chapter in that area, or even go back to the student chapters, because that's always a good way to help out and grow as a professional too.
And for a lot of our young professionals or those who are even in their first-time jobs or first full-time job, they want to put in their time with their employer. So what's the best way to create a good work-life balance when you're really trying to put in that time?
I mean, you could put in time with your employer doesn't necessarily mean that you have to put in a lot of time. Sometimes it's just you got to be patient and make sure that you're standing out. Like a better question that you should ask yourself, and I always did, especially when I was at AT&T, is do I want to be the person that works for the company 50, 60 hours, or do I want to be the person that can pull off the 50 or 60 hours in maybe 30 hours? When I was a manager, I had a saying I used to tell my boss, and she kind of laughed at it, but she couldn't really get on my case for it. I used to tell her my goal in life is to work smarter, not harder. And by doing that, even though I was salary, I'm like, if I work over 40 hours, I'm actually getting paid less per hour. So I wanted to work less than 40 hours. and she wanted to tell me I needed to work 40 hours, but they ranked the team managers in the call center. We had 40 managers, and I was consistently in the top 5. So she couldn't really say much. So that's one way you can also put in your time, is how can you be more efficient at your job so that you stand out, so that you can move up and put in your time.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned this earlier, so this question, how do you balance a higher income and that want to spend versus the need to pay bills and decrease debt?
Well, the best way to balance that is you really need to just think about what is your long-term goals. You know, do you want to invest in real estate? Do you want to grow your 401k? What about an IRA? Do you want to buy a house? Do you want to go on lavish vacations? You got to figure out what those goals are. And when you figure out those goals, you got to figure out, do I need to go in debt to get there? And the answer really is no. You just need to save up and plan for them. So you got to kind of play around with those goals, determine where you want them to go, and then save the money. A lot of people, me included, went into debt when you got out of college because you have all this money. You're getting approved for credit cards left and right, kind of like when you started college when, hey, sign up for this and you get a free credit card. And then you know suddenly pay the next couple of years trying to pay off that debt. So you don't want to do that. You know, learn from other people's experiences like mine and stay out of debt and save up the money.
And besides financials, there's a lot more responsibility that comes with a full-time job than what you may think or what you had in school. So can you give some advice about taking on that new obligation?
Well, remember, you're hired and you're getting paid by the company to do a job. Their goal of that job is to create more money for the company. If you're not creating a positive result for the company, lots of companies can do away with positions. So you want to make sure that you're giving them the best ROI, which also means kind of going back to one of the answers earlier, work smarter, not harder. You know, how efficient can you be at work? Because if you could do something a lot more efficient than, say, a coworker, you're going to be more valuable to the company because they're getting a better rate of return. And that's kind of the way we need to always look at those things. What can I do to stand out, and how can I do it better? Because if you're doing it super efficient, your job's going to be very secure.
All right, well, that's all the time we have for today. For any follow-up questions or conversation about the program, please contact education@aksci.org. And I would like to thank Tim once again for taking time to present to us today, and thank you guys for joining.